Hello, Catherine, Britt, and hello, Lachlan, Bryan. I said your last names very formally then, but hello, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Sophie.
Thank you for both being here because I know you have busy schedules, even when you're not meant to be in Tamworth, as you are this week. You are both producers, you're both performers, you're both writers, singers, musicians. So I do appreciate you making the time. Now, when I saw the announcement about the two of you combining to become the Pleasures, I had a feeling in my bones that it was going to be a great project, because how could it not be? And I've now seen the video for the first song, and of course it is a great song and a great project. So I was wondering which of you would like to talk about the origin story of this great project?
I feel like I've done the origin story in every interview so far. So Lachlan, it's all yours.
Sure.
Maybe
well, to make it seem like the truth, I'll try and tell it exactly as Catherine's been telling it. No, this is the truth. We've known each other for, I guess, a decade, approximately, and we've done a couple of shows together. I supported Catherine on some Victorian shows, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 years ago, and we've worked together before. We've sung on stage a couple of times together, but we first met, I believe. Well, I don't know if we first met, but we certainly first hung out together in Texas about 10 years ago, and Catherine actually had sung on a solo record that I made, but we'd never actually met when she sang on it, just because of the way that record was made. I don't know, our first, we had a bit of a crazy night in Austin with Catherine's manager at the time, and we were running around all these different places, and we kind of got to know each other, and I guess that's the first time that we realized that we kind of got along, and on that trip we talked about music, and which we've continued to do since, but we've never really worked together or talked about working together till Catherine sent me a text in the middle of the night early last year, and it was very ambiguous. I didn't get it till the next morning, and it was just, hey, we should do something together. We should record together. I can't remember exactly how she put it. I could probably find it. And I kind of thought she meant let's do some duets or something, and I interpreted it that way and got excited. I don't actually know if that's what she meant at all. In fact, I don't think it was from our next few conversations, but she went for the idea anyway, and we started making plans, and she came down to Melbourne. We had no songs. We furiously wrote 4 songs and recorded them in a week, and at the end of the week we came out and we were like, oh man, this is good. Let's make this a record. And then this was all in COVID time, and we probably thought we could get back together sooner and do it, but it was about another 6 months before we finally got in the same room again. Wrote another 5 songs this time around. We were nervous to see whether it would happen as easily the second time around, but it did. And lo and behold, less than a year later, we've got a whole record worth of songs and some tour dates and a band name, and it's all happening.
So Catherine, is that what you intended when you said that message?
Who knows? I'd had a few wines, and I was probably just like, I was feeling adventurous, and I said this in an interview earlier today. I remember my frame of mind because I just left my husband at the time, not long ago. I was feeling like, how when you've kind of been in a situation where you felt restrained, or you felt like you can't do certain things or whatever, and I felt like I was very much in that world, and I just wanted to go and do all the things I felt like I could never do, like work musically with men, or things like that just felt like so out of bounds for me. So I don't know, I always had a respect for Lachlan musically, and ever since that Texas trip, we bonded there, and then we've just stayed mates ever since, and that's been really lovely. It's kind of just having somebody in the industry who you can respect and sort of see eye to eye as far as musicality goes, and also just having respect for music in itself. So I kind of definitely think me and Lachlan had that and always kind of came together and felt really natural hanging out as mates. So yeah, I just felt like my message could go anywhere. And I think originally I was thinking about him like maybe producing some music for me. And then, when he said about duets and stuff, I thought, oh, that's an even better idea actually. Oh, right. But yeah, I just thought that's an even better idea. So we went with that and it just kind of went from there and very quickly became what it is now.
I suppose to an extent it's a lesson in following your instincts, because you said you'd had a few wines, whatever, but the idea was bubbling away in there. And as an established artist as you are, as established as a songwriter, I would imagine you've learned to trust your instincts about certain things over the years.
Yeah, I reckon. I know I have. I definitely follow my gut, and I always have, musically, business wise, everything. I think I've always followed what feels right musically first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's pretty important if you want to have integrity long term. You have to kind of stick to those feelings that, why am I doing this? And not doing it for reasons that are not long term. Like, I don't know. Fame, sex, whatever. Like, it's those things are, very fleeting and don't make a lot of sense long term. Whereas, doing it for the music or doing it for the right reasons are always going to last. So I definitely always have that at the forefront of my mind in everything I do. And I think that's very important for me. I mean, I'm sure it is for Lachlan too.
It is. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you mean about sex being very fleeting, but that hasn't been my experience. But it's their own, I guess. But no, I agree. It's like I think, to echo Catherine's sentiments, Catherine's someone I think has a lot of integrity, and if I'm going to work with another person and actually commit a decent amount of time to working with them and writing with them, I want to feel like there's someone that's going to make me better at what I do. Someone's going to bring in new ideas. Someone that I'm going to feel like I really have to lift my game to perform with and to record with and write with, and that's the case in this case.
So, I mean, there have been other great musical pairings, Dolly Parton, Porter Wagner, for example. Did you have any forebears in mind when you started to create your own music, or did you just put influences aside and think, we'll just go, again, instinctually with what works here?
Yeah, I think definitely I had a heap in my mind. And, growing up on country music as a little girl, I loved those times when artists came together and did the duet records. There's so many over the years, George and Tammy, and this Loretto and Conway, and you've mentioned Dolly and Porter, but I mean there's so many that were great, and classic country music and just really classic moments in music history as well. So yeah, I've always kind of wanted to do something like that, and I think if you do it right, it can be really cool. And I'm always up for a project. I'm always up for something that challenges me and sort of takes me outside of my world. I've been doing my Catherine Britt thing for so long, and I love it. I love what I do, but it's always really fun to do these other little things that take you on this little other journey that goes over here, and you wouldn't get there unless you did it with that person or whatever. And it just sort of changes you and helps you grow as an artist. So I love doing that stuff.
I suppose you're both really experienced collaborators with other people before you arrived at this point. I mean, Lachlan, you've got the Wilds. Catherine, you collaborate with a range of people. You've appeared on other people's records. So I guess in a way you had been in training for this kind of project together.
I guess so. I mean, this project has kind of quickly, although I anticipate that we'll do a bunch of shows that are just the two of us, it kind of has evolved into a band pretty quickly as well, with Damien from my band who's produced the record, and Brad from Catherine's band, and that I think probably what I'm kind of remembering here as we're putting things together is what it feels like to start a band, and all those things, because we're not going out there as Catherine, Britt and Britt and Bryan. We're going out there as the Pleasures. So this is its own entity. It's got its own thing. It's starting from scratch, and and that is really different to collaborating. The way you collaborate in a band is different to doing a guest appearance on someone's record, or writing with someone, or doing a joint tour or something like that. It's you know, it has its own set of challenges, and you know, and it really is starting from scratch. Like we're lucky that some people know who we are, which was not the experience for my band when we started. You know, no one knew who we were, and we sort of, you could argue that still no one knows who we are, but you know, it's that thing where you're starting off just trying to establish a completely new identity, and that's what it feels like, and that's actually really exciting to be doing that again. I haven't done that for a long time.
You mentioned Damien Caffarella, who produced the album, the forthcoming album, whenever that's being released. And you two are both individually producers as well. Lachlan, you've worked with a lot of artists. Catherine, you're doing a lot of producing, which has been so great to see. Did you consider producing the album yourselves?
Well, we kind of did produce the album. It's a co-production with the three of us. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully that worked well. I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
It
did, because I'd never worked with Kath before, so it's always interesting. I think this whole thing was like, we'll jump in and see what happens, and it somehow worked, because it was pretty hectic to just go, hey, come to Melbourne, and I had this idea to write and record all the tracks, you know, in these, I think I was only there for 2 or 3 days. It wasn't even a week. It was the first time so I flew in, we wrote 2 songs, went to the studio the next day, recorded the 2 songs, went home, wrote another 2 songs, went back to the studio the next day and recorded the next 2 songs. And then I flew home the next morning. So by the time I left, I was so emotionally drained. And I thought, man, that could have gone bad. This, you know, everyone's on little sleep, and you push your boundaries as far as, you know, being creative goes. And that's always really hard to do back to back to back. Mm-hmm. And I think we could have had little moments, you know, for sure, in the studio, working with each other for the first time. But it just really worked. I think we all had a really similar goal, and that was to make really great music, and to make it quickly, but with integrity, and make sure it still sounds good and it's quality.
Yeah.
So, I think that we just kind of stuck to that, and also kept on the same page, which was really nice.
Well, the other thing is, Catherine, you could have felt outnumbered, because Lachlan and Damien have worked together for so long that you could have thought, if it comes down to a decision, it's 2 against 1.
Yeah, true. This is true. I didn't think about that, Sophie. Wow. I'm glad I didn't think about that.
Clearly it didn't come up, therefore that's great.
Yes, it did.
So The Beginning of the End is the first song you're releasing as The Pleasures. Was it the first song you wrote?
No, it was in that first batch that we wrote, and it was the last one of the first batch that we recorded, and it's kind of the one that we came back to and sort of got a different angle on. I think that this was a song that you know, we had a rough idea. It was kind of a slower song, and then Catherine was like, "This isn't working," and she started hammering on one chord. This is just at my place when we were writing, and then we went into the studio, and it was pretty much the song that it is now. But I think, Catherine, you took a little bit of convincing on this one, and now, like, it's your favorite, you know, which I learned in another interview. But yeah, there was a song called Star Dream Girl by David Lynch, the film director, and we were driving back from the studio on the last day of the first session, and Catherine's like, "Yeah, I'm still not sure about that song," and then I played this David Lynch song, and we looked at each other and we're like, that it had this drum thing going on. We were like, that's what this song needs. And I think we went in the next day, did that, and then we're like, oh yeah, we get this song now. It works now.
Yeah, right. And I mean, you talked about your writing process happening fairly well. It sounds very swiftly, actually. And I guess you both are at a point in your careers where you've learned to get out of your own way. Maybe that's why it could happen so quickly. And you had the respect to get out of each other's ways as well. But as singers together, was there any, did you have any difficulty trying to work out where you sang relative to each other?
Yeah, I think that was probably one of the hardest things, is working out keys. Like, boy versus girl is always tricky. And I think we probably spent majority of the most time on that, is making sure we nailed the vocal parts. And we really wanted that consistent, you know, the double harmony, or the, you know, singing together thing throughout a lot of the tracks. I always loved that, you know, when you've got the Buddy and Julie Miller albums and things like that, where they're often singing together on every song, you know, and every now and again they branch out and do a verse or something. But I always love that, and I wanted to do that a lot on this record, and that is tricky, you know, working out who takes the harmony, what key are we doing it in, you know, is this too low for you? And I think once we figured that out, every time it really flowed really well and quite quickly. So that was the trickiest part, I think.
I mean, logistically, because you are preparing for shows, and we're meant to be playing a show this week, you're in different states. Obviously, there have been logistical difficulties getting to be with anyone else in a different state, regardless of where it is in Australia. So in preparing for the shows, are you rehearsing on Zoom?
No, we haven't tried that. We're going to get together and rehearse in person before the shows, if, you know, all going well. But yeah, that's certainly a challenge. I mean, that's always going to be a challenge being in different states. But I wasn't able to rehearse with my own band for 4 months of last year due to lockdowns and, you know, 5 kilometer rules, not being able to visit each other, all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, logistical nightmares have just become a part of life for us as musicians at the moment. And, you know, I have a feeling that we'll do some rehearsals and that'll be fine, and we'll feel good about it. But it's once you start doing shows, you know, that's when the confidence comes and you're thrown in there, and we're both experienced enough to know that we just have to find a way to nail it on stage. And once you get the confidence of having done, in my experience, once you have the confidence of having done that with a group of people a few times, you know, it's on, you know, from that point. And I think the first couple of shows will be interesting, you know, like I think it's actually exciting to be under the pressure of having to get up and nail all these new songs. I haven't had to do that for a long time. You know, whenever we put out a new record with the Wilds, you know, we play half or 3/4 of the record live, and then we play a bunch of stuff that we've been playing for a few years at least. So so this is a new challenge, and it's daunting and exciting.
Well, it also seems like you implicitly trust each other, which could make for interesting things to happen performance-wise as well, because I would imagine in some on-stage environments, trust isn't necessarily there, depending on the band situation and how long you've been together. But I think that's a different energetic element, for lack of a better term. That could
the longer my band's been together, the less they trust me. So
I had a feeling you were going to say something like that.
Yeah.
So Catherine, you were a few years ago, and I saw one of the shows in Tamworth. You were in the Hillbilly Killers with Tim Rogers and Bill Chambers. How does Lachlan rate as a bandmate?
Very different kettle of fish, I tell you what. That was like one of the wildest things I've ever been a part of. And I was on tour at the time with Tim Rogers, and like a solo, the only girl traveling along with all these rock and roll like legends, and they were just like, man, it was like hold on for dear life, you know. I remember he had a conversation with my parents, because I did one of the first shows on the Central Coast. My parents came along, and Tim Rogers sat down with my folks and said, "Oh, don't worry, I'll take care of your daughter." And they're like, yeah, right, like far out. It was full on. And he did not take care of me, PS. But it was a fun thing, you know. It was wild and a great project, and just that was the hold on for dear life thing. And it was that, you know, again, it was such a different thing musically, of course. You know, we were doing the whole murder ballads and tribute to Hank Williams type thing, whereas this, I kind of wanted to do an actual sound, you know, like a new sound, like we are a band that's brand new, and we have a complete new sound that's got nothing to do with our own careers, you know. And I do really feel like we've done that, you know. I don't think any of these songs I would necessarily comfortably hear on one of my records. I don't know about for Lachlan, but I love that about it, you know. It just feels really separate to what I do, and that's what I wanted. I wanted something that felt really different for me, so that's really nice. Whereas the Hillbilly Killers, you know, I sing hillbilly music every day, so it's very similar.
No, it does. The one song I've heard doesn't sound like something that either of you would put on your records, but it's sort of exactly what I was hoping for, if that makes sense. And it is a super exciting project. I think for anyone who is familiar with either of your work, it's a great project. And just for anyone who's vaguely familiar with your work, it's a great project. So I'll ask one more question, which is about the touring. So you have some shows coming up handful of shows. Sounds like they're band shows. Lachlan, you said maybe there'll be some duo shows. I know you both have commitments coming for your individual projects in the middle of the year. Catherine, you've got the Bush Pubs tour. Lachlan, you and the Wilds are going to do some touring. Can you foresee that you're going to find time throughout the year to tour together?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's such a weird time. We've both had so much stuff cancelled over the last couple of years or postponed, and we're both kind of, as a result, we're both coming off records that we haven't toured as much as we would normally want to. You know, certainly our record. We put out our record in September, the Wilds, and we've played maybe 3 shows since then, and that's just so different to how things would normally be. You know, I think this year across the board, not just with us, but with just about everyone that's a touring musician, you're going to see us probably trying to cram in as much stuff as we can as soon as we're allowed to. You know, I think there'll be times when, you know, Catherine's doing a Catherine Britt tour and then there's a pleasure show in the middle of it, or vice versa. And certainly the same with my band. So, you know, Catherine's been playing a little bit more than I have, just because of the locations that she tours to. But I certainly can't wait to get on a stage regularly again. So from my perspective, we'll do as much as we can.
Yeah, well, when all of this mess, for lack of a better term, started in March 2020, looking at what was happening to the music industry, even then, I did wonder what projects would come out of this time. This is one of those projects. Thank goodness for music fans, I think. So I can't wait to see you play live. Thank you both very much for speaking to me.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thanks, Sophie.